Several people from this province were recently appointed to the Order of Canada. Some are well known, like Buddy What's-His Name and the other fellers, and other recipients have made quieter contributions, like Dr. Conor Maguire. You'll often find Dr. Maguire at the Nuclear and Molecular Medicine Department, where he's educating students and improving cancer diagnoses and care through his work in radiology. He's been making his mark in the field for decades, helping introduce PET-CT imaging programs in Alberta and helping to establish the cyclotron and PET-CT imaging center at the hospital in St. John's. But he never thought his contributions would lead to such a high honor.
The first thing I said was, "Pardon me," because I honestly couldn't imagine that I would receive such a huge honor. I was just I was really surprised. I guess shocked is another word I could have used, but I was, and I had to take a moment to let it sink in. When I hung up the phone, I got a little emotional because I was extremely honored, but at the same time, I was very humbled.
He phoned me and asked if I had seen the email, and I said no. He said, "I've been awarded the Order of Canada," and I just started to cry, which is probably what I'm going to do now. But it was no surprise. It was no surprise to me. I think Conor's worked hard, and whomever he meets can see that.
Well, Conor and Carolyn met in grade 11. They've now been married for 44 years. Their life together and the pivotal events leading up to him receiving this national honor began with both extraordinary devastation and joy. During a summer vacation in Germany, a 21-year-old Conor broke his neck while diving in a river. He was paralyzed. At the same time, he found out he was going to be a dad.
It was initially devastating because one minute you're a big, strong guy, athletic, and the next minute you can't feel anything below your shoulders, and you're paralyzed at a very severe level, and you're in an ICU, and you're not feeling too good about things. Carolyn was my high school sweetheart. And my family, my dad came over right away, and then my mom came over for a while. I had such huge support, but Carolyn in particular was just my rock, and she lifted me up and encouraged me. So, sorry, but she never stopped loving me, and I love her as much to this day. And I'm sorry, it's hard to go right back in that moment in time and not feel strong emotion for the deep love that I received. And Carolyn told me while I was in Germany that she was with child, and I was just overjoyed. We were so fortunate that our families were so loving.
And you find out the man that you are in love with won't walk again, but you're going to have a baby. How do you process that as a young woman?
Well, it was actually Conor's father that set me down, and he said to me, he'd been to Germany and seen Conor, and he knew our relationship and knew I was expecting. And he sat me down, he said, this is a man who now is a quadriplegic. He said, you won't be able to go for those walks in the woods hand in hand. He said he was offering me an out. He said, we love children in this family, and with that kind of support, how could you go wrong?
Carolyn's dad was funny. He said, you're studying to be a doctor and she's studying to be a nurse. You think you'd have a few clues about birth control, but it was to me a miracle. I had no idea whether I was going to be able to achieve all the milestones that would be required to successfully obtain my medical degree. After that, I have to be honest, once I got into the rehab part of it, I just had the attitude, things can't get any worse, they can only get better. and the only person who can make it better is me. And that's kind of how I approach my life. And I never, after that, I have to be honest, I knew I had a disability. It was obvious. I had to, learn how to push myself around, and I was strong in those days, and I could push myself around in a manual chair. And I was able to do far more than I ever thought. And then I looked at, I'm very competitive by nature in sports and anything I did. I was pretty competitive, and not in an aggressive way, but just wanting to achieve my best. And she brought that out of me, but I also just had that natural inclination. So I never approached life as being a disabled person. I never thought about my wheelchair. I would always focus on what I was doing. And so when I was dealing with patients or anybody that I would interact with, I just saw them as a person, and I approached them as a person. And I don't think they saw as much the wheelchair as they saw me. And that's all that really mattered. And I'd rather not have the disability, don't get me wrong. I give anything to go, if I give anything to go back and not that 1 second of stupidity, that led to me breaking my neck. If I could take that back, I'd take it back. You don't, I've always told people that you don't accept a disability, you adjust to it. But I wouldn't trade my life now that I've lived it for anything, because it's been a very happy one.